Welcome to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Cindy Robinson, and today we're talking about ASU football, how they did over the past weekend, and previewing the next game against UCLA. So, not Connor, Richie Bradshaw will be joining us from Locked On Sun Devils and talking everything ASU football for, I guess we'll say for the week, just to keep it simple.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Locked On Pac-12 podcast. We know you could have been listening to anything, but this is the best place for everything Conference of Champions. Today's episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Now we are joined by Richie Bradshaw from Locked On Sun Devils. Richie, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. Obviously, ASU coming off a pretty nice win, and we get a big test of champions coming up this Saturday. So I'm good right now because it's Tuesday night. It'll be Wednesday when this comes out, but by the time it hits Friday evening, Saturday morning, I'm going to be nervous and shaking in my boots.
Oh no, this is dropping tonight on Tuesday. So the fans
perfect.
will, yes, Locked On fans will be hearing this tonight. Let's kick things off though. Like you just talked about how ASU came up a big win. And, I was talking with Connor last week and saying how important it was for them to start off their Pac-12 play with a win, especially going up against Colorado. Seems like ASU got the job done, did what was needed to be done. But there's some things we need to discuss in there because on one end, there's a lot of good that happened out of that game. Like I said, they did what was needed to be done. But on the other hand, this is just Colorado in a sense and not USC or UCLA. So we're going to dive in and talk about those good things, talk about some of the not so great things, and then give you a good preview of, what's to come in this upcoming week with UCLA. Starting things off with the good though, I want to hear from you what stood out from ASU this week, maybe something that you felt like they had needed to work on and you saw the improvement this week?
Yeah, so the biggest thing was the offense was able to put up points in bunches. I was very happy with what I got to see. So Jaden was airing the ball out for the first time this season. We had a receiver eclipse the 70-yard mark. In fact, we had 3 of them eclipse that mark. So
Nice.
The passing game looked good. The run game continues to look strong with Daniel Nagata and Rashad White paving the way. Of course, Jaden Daniels is also pitching in his numbers as well. The thing that I'm most excited about going into this week is Chip Trayanum is supposed to be back. The actual Sun Devils football Twitter account tweeted out he's back with a picture of Trayanum. So having him moving forward is going to be huge. But in the meantime, the run game has still looked very strong. It looks like one of the best in the Pac-12, if not the best. And they continued to run rampant against the Buffaloes and got to be happy with the results you saw there. The defense knew that they were coming in to play a Colorado offense that had been really struggling. They had gone starting from the first quarter of the Texas A&M game where they went all the way down to the wire and lost that game 10-7. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter. They proceeded to not score any points all the way up until the second quarter of the Arizona State game. So they essentially went 8 quarters without putting up any points. And the defense gave up 13, but overall, it was a very impressive and dominant performance by the defense. I was really happy with what I saw.
I definitely wanted to talk about that defense, specifically those corners who completely diminished the passing game for Colorado. They held Brendan Lewis, Colorado's quarterback, to just 7 completions and 67 passing yards. And I feel like that's huge considering, I think there were some discrepancies about ASU's defense and how well they were doing, according to Connor. So for them to show up like they did in this game, again, although it is just Colorado, I feel like they did what was necessary and what was expected instead of falling short against a team that is technically considered, not as good as them.
Yeah, Jack Jones was able to step up big time with Chase Lucas being sidelined to injury. But Jones, as we knew coming into this year, looked like a very solid corner who could play the boundary opposite Lucas. And this week, the spotlight was on him because Lucas was out and the secondary needed to have him lock it all down. And without taking a jab at the Buffaloes, they didn't really have the most potent passing attack coming into this game. But Jack Jones really solidified that you weren't going to be able to pass on them even without Chase Lucas in that backfield. Jones was flying around the field. He was making plays. And overall, probably one of the best performances of his career, I would say.
Has this game made you more confident in the defense moving ahead into more Pac-12 play?
Oh, definitely. So the defense has been arguably Arizona State's best attribute of the football team this year, going hand in hand with the run game. The defense has been suffocating, and they've taken on some solid offenses this year. They still have yet to face a juggernaut, although BYU was a very good program that they took on. And they did a pretty good job limiting what BYU was able to do on the ground and definitely through the air. UCLA is going to give them a huge challenge this week. This is probably the second or third best offense in the Pac-12 after Oregon and Oregon State, I would say. But yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to give us fits. But based off of the tape and 4 games that Arizona State's defense has given us, I feel confident that we can at least slow him down and limit his damage.
Okay, before we get into too much preview talk, we have more of that coming up next. I do want to talk about what ASU still needs to work on ahead of that game against UCLA. So, still to come. Make sure that we keep that for, the next few. But for those of you that are, college football fanatics and you're so into fantasy, Prize Picks is a daily fantasy made easy, so I know you'll be interested in finding out more about it. Prize Picks is a leader in college sports, daily fantasy. They offer more college football props than anyone in the world, and they offer all the star players of the Power 5 as well as mid-major players that you might not have even heard of. Prize Picks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. So all the users that deposit and use promo code Locked On will receive 100% instant deposit matchup to $100. That's promo code Locked On. So you basically pick 2 to 5 players and over and under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's literally just you versus the projected numbers. Prize Picks allows mixed sports entries, which is kind of unheard of. You can take the over on LeBron combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's literally that easy. Prize Picks is safe and it offers fast withdrawals. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use the promo code Locked On, or go to the App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Now, as often as we like to help you win money, we also like to help you save money. And this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family-oriented business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. So basically, it's a way for you to save time and money when you're in need of auto parts. Rock Auto really has everything from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. It's a great way to save your money because all the prices are the same for any type of customer, whether you're an auto person or, just the regular person that needs some maintenance done on their car. You can go to explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Head to rockauto.com and write in the "How did you hear about us" box that Locked On sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Now, Richie, continuing this talk about ASU and how well they did this past weekend, I want you to paint us the picture of things that need to still be worked on, because football is one of those games of like, you can be great, but there's still always something to improve on. And while they did great against a team like Colorado, I want to know, going up against a team like UCLA, what are the things that they should focus on this week in practice?
They definitely need to continue figuring out how to contain the mobile quarterback. They have run into some really good guys between the BYU kid, whose name's escaping me at the moment. I apologize for that. And Brandon Lewis for Colorado. They did a good job for the most part. There were definitely some times where it was frustrating to see the quarterback breaking the pocket and picking up yards with his legs. They're going to have to really buckle down and figure out how to do that against UCLA, or else Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I consider to be what everyone wants Jaden Daniels to be, is going to tear them apart because he can pass it and he can especially run the football. And he's really good once he gets out of the pocket with his legs.
Yeah. UCLA, we saw them struggle a little bit coming off their bye week against Fresno State. They bounced back against Stanford. They're sitting at number 20 in the rankings. And probably, if you really want to break things down, the top of the Pac-12 South at this moment. ASU's neck and neck with them, in my opinion. At this point, I do believe that this game is going to be a determining factor of who may take Pac-12 South this year.
Yeah, and that's something me and Connor had kind of touched about earlier in the week. Is it seems like, without necessarily guaranteeing you the Pac-12 South, that this might be who it ends up coming down between. USC is still a really solid team, but right now their quarterbacks are banged up, and Keaton, I don't think, is at 100% right now. Right. I think Keaton Slovis has definitely slowed down a little bit, and the defense hasn't been what we hoped.
And they just took the L against Oregon State. And at this point, it's kind of up and down for them. They're really on a roller coaster. One week they're showing up how they need to, and another week it's not looking as pretty. So they are a team that, like you said, they're solid, but I won't say they're solid. They're still a good team, but they're not solid right now in the aspect of you're going to know what you get week in and week out. There's a lack of consistency there. And so it's boiling down to the teams of UCLA and ASU.
Yeah, and giving USC a little bit of grace. Obviously, they don't have the best identity right now after moving on from Clay Helton. So that definitely throws them into a jumble. But focusing back on Arizona State and UCLA, this definitely seems like the clash of the Titans for the Pac-12 South. Utah will still make some noise. USC will still make some noise. U of A and Colorado are completely out of it. So it kind of comes down to Arizona State and UCLA. It feels like the winner of this game is ultimately who's going to represent the South for the Pac-12 conference game.
Yes, for sure. Now, with that being said, we talked about defense as far as ASU and what they need to work on. Offensively, what are some concerns still, if any?
I still just want to see Jaden be consistently effective through the air. So Jaden has thrown 2 touchdown passes to 3 interceptions this year. Definitely a lot to be desired. And unfortunately, those 2 touchdown passes came against UNLV. So we have not seen Jaden throw a touchdown pass in 3 of 4 games this year. That absolutely needs to change. Now, the good news for him is that run game with that 3-headed monster, now that Trey Annam is coming back, is going to really open things up. And obviously, we all know that Jaden has taken a huge step forward this year as a mobile quarterback, where before he seemed a little passive and careful with the sleight of frame build that he has. This year, while he's not embracing contact in the way of like a Cam Newton would use himself as a battering ram, Jaden hasn't been afraid to take a little bit of contact and get those extra yards. And it's been really nice to see. But I still need to see Jaden find a way to get into the end zone with his arm. And I know the receivers need to step up too. The guy who I've been looking at all year, Andre Johnson, was blanked against Colorado this past weekend, and he's got to show up. LV Bunkley-Shelton and Johnny Wilson look like really good contributors. Ricky Pearsall has been terrific as a jack-of-all-trades kind of guy. But here's a fun little fact for you. Ricky Pearsall also has 2 touchdown passes this year, and he's a wide receiver.
Okay. All right. Well, coming up, we're going to continue giving you a preview into the UCLA versus ASU matchup that will be happening this weekend. We're in the thick of things at this point. We're in Pac-12 play. Things are getting serious, and we're excited to see how I guess ASU will come out of this Pac-12 matchup because it may just determine who wins the Pac-12 South. Now, for those of you that are into betting, especially when it comes to college football or pro football, BetOnline is your spot, okay? It is the number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so do not miss out. BetOnline is your online sportsbook experts. Okay, Richie, so at this point, UCLA is sitting at number 20. They're getting ready to face ASU. ASU is looking to climb back into those rankings. Where do you feel like UCLA falls short when it comes to getting ready for this matchup?
Man, that's really tough.
I know it's so tough.
They're a really good football team. I like them a lot. Like I mentioned, I legit am nervous about this game. I'd be a little more comfortable if we were in Tempe, but there's a very real chance that we go to Pasadena and we don't get embarrassed, but we definitely get shown that we are second fiddle to UCLA. The biggest thing is we're going to need to continue to pound the rock. And like I said, with Trey Anum back in the lineup, you have a three-headed monster at running back plus a mobile quarterback. So UCLA is going to have their hands full trying to stop this run game. And I will tell you that you can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them. So if UCLA can find a way to bottle up Arizona State's run game, that's going to be their biggest key to victory. If they can force Jaden to throw the ball and get out of the game script that the Sun Devils are most comfortable with, that's also going to be a huge advantage for them. But like I said, it'll be one of those things where you can't stop Arizona State's run game. You can only hope to limit what they can do.
I was going to say, if ASU could find a way to actually capitalize on a passing game in this game, they may actually have an opportunity to win because UCLA secondary isn't, the best. They're sitting at, I think it says they're ranked among the worst in the nation. So at this point, if ASU could find a way to, especially Jaden, mix it up a little bit, and that might be something that they're trying to focus on this week, because while you do have that run game solidified, you also are dealing with a run defense that, isn't necessarily the easiest to deal with. It isn't and so you have to go around it, right? When you are trying to get a win, you got to find a way to make that happen. What are your thoughts on Arizona State's run defense? Because while we're talking about Arizona State having a good run game, UCLA's run game isn't too shabby itself, especially with Zach Charbonnet at, running back. So what are your thoughts about ASU's run game? Run defense, sorry.
Charbonnet is an absolute monster. He is, call me biased, I would still take Rachaad White over him, but okay. Charbonnet, that's how you say it, right?
Yeah, Charbonnet.
He looks like
Charbonnet. You know what? It's one of those tricky names. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. I always have to do this because sometimes I think I have a name right, and then someone else will say it, and I'll be like, dang, that was close, but not it.
And then you hope that no one finds out, right?
Exactly. But we know who we're talking about. I think I just need to do like a run course on YouTube to figure out every tricky name in the Pac-12. It's so hard, though, because it's a lot to keep up with.
Right. He's a monster, though. So for my money, I would tell you he's the second best running back in the Pac-12, only behind Rachaad White. And like I said, maybe there's a little bit of bias there being a Sun Devil alumni, but he is an absolute animal, and he's been tearing it up all year long, and he should be the primary focus for Antonio Pierce and the rest of the defensive staff going into this game.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about this matchup. If you have to give us a guess or I'll say a prediction, that's what it is, a prediction. What are you saying? I know you're going to choose your ASU Sun Devils because it's obvious. But what are you giving prediction-wise for a score?
I'll tell you what, I feel like I'm picking the Sun Devils just because I'm a fan. I truly think that with this game being in Pasadena, UCLA should win this game. They should be the favorite. But being the host of the Sun Devils, Locked On Sun Devils podcast, I will take the Sun Devils in a very close one. I will take the Sun Devils 27-25.
Okay. I mean, we've already talked about the implications of this game. It pretty much could very well solidify the Pac-12 South Championship and who walks away with that title. Obviously, we're speaking kind of early because it's only week 5, but looking at, the opponents and everything that's been happening in the Pac-12 South so far, that seems like the most likely. It'll come down to UCLA and ASU. It's crazy that this game is so early and and so much is on the line.
100%. Yeah, it is really, really weird that this would be the second week of Pac-12 play and the fifth game for both teams. This feels like something that you would see in November,
right?
Like mid to late November, because this looks like it could seriously decide the Pac-12 South champion. It's crazy that we get to potentially see who the winner is this early on in the season.
100%. Oh, sorry, Mike. 100%. But if anything, I feel like it kind of shakes things up too, though, because now, depending on after how things go with this game, we'll be on the watch throughout the season to see if there's any upsets, that completely throws off what we thought was happening with these two teams leading the Pac-12 South, because USC could go undefeated from now to the end of the season, and that switches everything up. So you just never know in college football. It's really one of those sports that keep you on your toes, which is intriguing for us and makes it all the more entertaining. I hope it's entertaining for the fans as well. I'm looking forward to Pac-12 After Dark and all the good stuff that, is going to come along with it. So as always, Richie, thank you for joining us and giving us your insight about ASU and everything we didn't know about the Sun Devils.
Always a pleasure coming on, Cindy. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, for those of you into betting, you want to check out the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. You can get your daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. So follow the Locked On Bets podcast, brought to you by BetOnline AG, wherever you get your podcasts. And then you can follow along with the Locked On Pac-12 podcast and the Locked On Sun Devils podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. And then follow along on Twitter at LO_Pac-12, at LO_Sun Devils. Am I right?
That is correct.
Okay. I always have to double check. There's so many Twitter handles to remember when doing this. And then you can follow along with me at _Cindy Robinson, and then with Richie at Richie Brads with a Z 36. So we'll give you all the insight that we can. I mean, I'm more of like a light tweeter. I don't really tweet as often. I did promise that I would tweet more in season, but I started a new job, and so that made things a little more difficult. So we're going to, get in there as much as I can. Locked On Pac-12, follow that on Twitter. That's where you want to get all your info. Other than that, make sure you stay locked on the Pac-12 on the Locked On Network, because this is for sure going to be Monday through Friday, a guarantee. I will not flake on that. So, and then follow along on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. We're trying to bring you more and more content and more ways to listen to the podcast. And so, this is just one extra way. Other than that, stay locked on Pac-12 on the Locked On Network.